Is it important to track your sleep if you have sleep apnea? The answer may surprise you because I'm not someone who uses a lot of sleep trackers personally or with my patients, but there is a lot of value in having data, okay? Because data helps you drive decisions. Because if you're not tracking certain data and metrics, whether it's your sleep or something else, you're throwing stuff at the wall and you're really not sure if it's helping you or not. And that's when you're trying different things, whether it's a diet, whether it's a different mouth guard or a machine or a different mask, and like you're left to ask yourself, like, is this really doing anything? And whether it's the frustration, whether it's like you just want to throw your hands up in the air, you're like, is this even going anywhere? And it just slows down your progress to a grinding halt. But the thing is, in biology, in your body, in health, there is never such a thing as status quo, okay? Aging is always going on, deteriorating. So if you're not really moving forward, if you're not growing, that is, you're dying in a biological sense, okay? But when you are able to really know what your metrics are, being able to track them accordingly and move them in the right direction with steady, good decision making that is driven by data, then guess what? Then you're moving in the right direction at all times. And even if you have a step back, guess what? That is still information and feedback for you to know better. So hopefully you can do better. Okay, so that's why in this episode, we are going to talk about sleep trackers and how they can be used alongside sleep apnea. Okay, because I get a lot of questions about this all the time. What's the best sleep tracker and all those different pieces here. So if you have any questions on that, the comments are a great place, whether it's questions directly or if you want to let me know what sleep tracker you are using and what specific questions you have about data on that. Like, what the heck is WASO? All right. Or like, is this actually an accurate measurement? Okay. Because again, when you're going through data, if you aren't able to use that correctly, then it just veers you off course. Now, I want to kind of put you in my mind, okay? Not all the parts where I'm asking myself questions about, like, what does my dog think about at night, but the important stuff for sleep apnea, okay? So whenever you're getting data on something, people make a big mistake. They then go act on it or have a hypothesis. But what you need to know first, it's just like when your computer's not working, okay? What do they always say? Whether it's tech support, you call up like the computer manufacturer, what do they always say? Have you tried restarting your computer? Okay? There's always a basic first step. Here, the question needs to be, are these data real? And by the way, the word data is plural. Now you know. Now I say data are real, okay? Singular form is datum, okay? Um. You're welcome. So, with this, in terms of characterizing and knowing that data is precise, okay? We don't need to get into a whole bunch of statistic talk. I don't mean to bore you. But you need to make sure you have good, accurate data, okay? Now, every time you measure something, you must know, what is the question I am trying to answer, okay? Because I can tell you right now, sleep apnea and sleep quality, they're like two circles. If you were to imagine two circles, like as a Venn diagram, okay? Because general sleep quality and sleep apnea, they're separate but highly related. And if you're using a sleep quality tracker to determine sleep apnea, you'll get some data but miss others. Okay? So you need to understand when you're measuring something, okay? Like when you take a ruler to a, I don't know, a jelly bean. You're asking yourself, how big is this jelly bean? Okay? It's really silly because it is. But with using like an Oura ring or like a Whoop or a Fitbit, you got to know what kind of questions you're asking, how the devices are going about that. So that's why I want to really break down how you need to be looking and interpreting this data into categories. So if you imagine you have like a two columns in a table here, okay, we're going to have sleep apnea. Just put SA there if you're taking notes. And then also sleep quality, SQ. Okay, the S is redundant, so my apologies on that. Now, in the sleep apnea column, you need to know like what is important. Okay, because again, if you don't know the important details, you're left like doing things, not working, not knowing they're working, and then you're left as someone who's again just like clawing at a wall and just like so frustrated that your health is still like this. And right, like pushing through the day, having to rely on caffeine, it's just so annoying. So let's make it less annoying. Okay, so sleep apnea. Most important things to know. Okay, I'll make this like super easy. Noise. Okay, I want to write that in your column, and then also oxygen. Okay, because before we go much further, I want to make it very clear. The gold standard is getting a sleep study. That may not be convenient for you. Okay, and also there is issues with sleep studies because again with a sleep study, the question it's asking is how do you sleep in this environment? Okay, that's what it's asking. And it's getting very specific, like what are your brain waves? What are your breathing patterns? What it gets very specific data. But the thing is, unless you live in a sleep lab, there can be confounding variables that actually affect your sleep. Okay? So for instance, myself, when I like way back in the day when I had really bad sleep apnea, I couldn't sleep for anything, I actually slept through the night for the first time in years at the sleep lab. It was refreshing, don't get me wrong, but it was also infuriating because I was like, wait. So we actually repeated it. Okay. But luckily, you know, I'm glad that was able to happen. But like, you need to know, you need to understand there's a gold standard, but also it asks a different question. That's why at home sleep studies, okay, are very helpful. Okay. Because it's in the environment you're in constantly, because that's the environment you want to work with. So, noise, oxygen, these are the two most important things for sleep apnea specifically. Okay? Now, for sleep quality, okay? Put an SL in here, and we'll just put latency in your column. Time to fall asleep, okay? And then there's good old WASO, okay? I mean, this is from this is a sleep literature term. But what that means is the time awake, okay, in between sleep. Like you wake up in the middle of the night, right? And then there's all these other things like depth of sleep. Okay. Now these are all very separate entities here. Okay. With and this is why like I get like mildly frustrated perhaps when someone's like, what about a Fitbit? What about an Oura ring? What about a watchpat 1? So we're going to answer all those questions on those like right now because we have all these factors here. Okay. People may ask like, what about a at-home sleep study? Some of the more popular ones, okay, there's something called a watchpat 1, okay? I don't know why it's named that, but it is. Watchpat, like you're watching your friend Pat, watchpat 1, okay? And it is a at-home, one-time use sleep study, okay? I roll my eyes at one-time use because I'm not sure why you just can't use it repeatedly. And it will then give you certain important metrics here. And it will focus predominantly on oxygen, okay? Which is important because in sleep apnea, if you're not breathing well at night, guess what? You're going to desaturate. You're going to lose oxygen levels, okay? So you can track that with a watchpat 1, okay? But there's other devices as well, okay? I mean, literally they're all over the place now. If you Google at-home sleep study or at-home pulse ox, overnight pulse oximetry, you will see a ton of devices that have apps where it can give you a little curve here. Those are incredibly valuable. Again, you always need a licensed healthcare provider to give you a diagnosis, but you only need a cell phone and something off of Amazon to have data. Okay? So, oxygen is very important. The other thing is noise. Now, noise can be tricky, okay? Because you can be snoring, but that doesn't mean you have sleep apnea. It's very likely you do, okay? But noise is something you can also track, which will let you know how is your airflow. Because more noise, okay? I don't know why I said noise like some weird French term, but the more noise there is, this will indicate worse airflow. And there's different apps like Snore Labs is one app like an Apple iPhone app or an Android app that you place on your nightstand and that will record you overnight. Okay? Okay? Now, it's probably also why you probably get a bunch of ads for like mouth guards and stuff, right? I'm just assuming that's probably how they do that. But that will let you know and be able to track how, like, what kind of noise are you making at night. And these become ways in which you can track. Okay? Now, something I want to make really clear, don't get caught up in any one day with any of this. Okay? Do not do that. Trends over time. Okay? Because being able to, you know, see fluctuations day to day, you need to have a very good eye and expertise to know like what that means for an individual context. Okay, someone who it is, doesn't live and breathe helping people with these issues, it's easier to just zoom out and look at trends over time here. Okay, so that's with sleep apnea. So those are gonna be separate devices here, okay? Because this is a cell phone app, and we talked about for noise that is, and for oxygen, different overnight pulse oximetry devices. Now, for sleep quality, because sleep quality is different, okay? It is. It is. Okay? Because you can fall right asleep, right? You have low sleep latency. You can spend most of that time asleep, right? But if your oxygen saturation is dipping low, that's actually bad. That's very bad if it's dropping below a certain point. But that's not going to get captured by, say, Fitbit or Oura Ring or Whoop here. Okay? Unless by the time of the video they rolled out like Oura Ring 5 where it gives you overnight pulse oximetry readings. But for the most part, the way sleep trackers, Fitbit, Whoop, Oura Ring, more Fitbit and Whoop, and these are just, there's so many nowadays, so forgive me, I don't know all 70,000. But they are going to actually track a lot of these measures by your body's movement. Okay? It's an okay measurement, but it's not the best. Okay? So, yes, you can use this, but again, you want to be able to use trends over time to identify how is my sleep latency? How many minutes or hours am I spending in the middle of the night? What's my depth of sleep like? Okay? But between these two sets of data, sleep apnea versus sleep quality, I like to triage it because one of these is survival, really. One of these is we're trying to monitor numbers to help you thrive. Okay? The sleep apnea stuff is trying to help you survive here. Okay? Because I don't care what the depth of your sleep or how much time in REM is if like you're, below 80% the entire night in terms of oxygen saturation. We got bigger issues to fix. Okay? Because again, what did I say? We need to make sure the data are real, relevant, and significant. Okay? Just because you have numbers, it needs to go into a context and you need to be able to interpret those numbers. Okay? So, again, these sleep apnea metrics, they're going to have a much better relevancy to you. Okay? You can use both, of course, and correlate them and track them over time, but sleep apnea ones are going to be way more important here. Now, there is one other set of measurements that none of these use that you need to be using. Okay? If not daily. Because the thing that irks me the most about data is people get so caught up in it and they get caught up in the day-to-day fluctuation. Again, they're not sure what does what, and they're still just like waking up feeling like, half awake, and then having to push through the day off of coffee and espresso. That's no way to live life. But then they're caught up in the numbers and don't really see the bigger picture. Because the most important tracker, okay, not discounting these, but the most important tracker. Are you ready for this? Do you want to guess? I think I asked people to guess last time, but comment below. Well, I guess comment below, based on what we talked about, any questions you may have, okay? Or what you think is the most important thing to track, okay? Comment below with that, because you may be surprised. All right? So, subjective tracking. Yes, good old, how do you feel? All right? Now, is this unscientific? No. Because the more someone checks in on how they're feeling and they do that over time, you actually get a lot better at it. And it becomes a very consistent measurement. Yes, you're 2 out of 5, maybe someone's 4 out of 5 in terms of grogginess. But it's not about the absolute number, it's about relative trends over time. super, super important. So the more subjectively you can track how you're feeling, and this can be some of the main variables you're tracking, okay? Whether it's like, how's my brain fog? 1, awful. 5, totally clear. How much, like, how exhausted am I by 4 p.m.? 1 through 5. You want to find those things that will have the most variation because then you can begin to extrapolate the most meaningful data here, okay? Because you want to use this all together, subjective and objective. People get caught up in just objective, but the thing is, again, your sleep score is like 88, great, but if you're like having to take a nap at 3 p.m., not by choice, is that 88 like a you're good? No, it's not. And if anything, it's harmful because then like you feel like you're pretty good, maybe you're like 95 or whatever. But why am I still like this? Neither you're forced to accept it or you feel like you have nothing to improve upon or like you're like, wait, what? So being able to have both tools is super, super important here. Okay, so I would recommend just picking 3 questions. Okay, have a scale of 1 to 5. If you want to be super scientific, a scale of 1 through 7 is actually the best. Not 1 through 10, but 1 through 7 is actually scientifically the best. All right. Um, that's what you want to do. Okay. Pick the 3 questions that you consistently answer at a consistent time of day. Okay. I would recommend the morning. Okay. Or midday. Beyond that, you're going to forget. Okay. You just are. Now, when you have this data, okay, then what? Okay. Because data, right, if we imagine data is over here, it's this domino, and it should drive decisions. This is the feedback loop you want to have, okay? Well, if we imagine like like the recycling symbol, it would be data, decisions, plan, and then you're watching the data again. What do I mean by this? Let's say we change what you eat for breakfast. Super simple. Let's say we do that. Okay. And we look in the data, let's pick one of the things we talked about. Now your snoring goes from 7 events per hour to 5. Okay. What's our decision? I mean, that's not really a big change, but okay, let's make a big, big change. Let's say we go from like 12 to 5. Okay. Oh, what's our decision? I mean, keep doing that. Okay. The decision would be to keep doing that, whatever you're doing for breakfast, and that would change your plan. Okay. Now let's say we add more protein at dinner. Okay. Oh, now my O2 saturation went down. Okay. Now decision wise, well, let me like put an X near increased protein. Okay, then you're gonna update your plan. Okay, so data, decision, plan. That's the cycle you need to go through. Now, this can be very harrowing by yourself, right? Because it reaches that certain point. Like, I mean, I think I experience more with like home DIY projects. It's like you're trying to do this thing and you just feel like so in it, you don't know where you're going. Because, again, data needs to be based in context. And the ultimate context is not a big clinical trial. Okay? It's not. It's yours, n equal 1. Always. That means like your individual circumstances. Okay? Because no one in any study is going to have the exact same circumstances, the exact same lifestyle, and the exact same everything as you. Okay? So being able to make those data decisions really lays on a foundation of really knowing like where you're at in your individual needs. So like never ever forget that. Okay? And of course, if you need help with that, we do have our free evaluation session where we really help you identify that solid foundation of the big issues so you can be able to really have a much better pattern of making decisions and having a plan. Okay? And if you want our help in making that plan, we can always talk about that. But if not, I mean, this whole session is designed to give you that solid foundation of your individual needs. Okay, so if you want that free one-on-one session, go to ochnow.com/talk. Okay, again, ochnow.com/talk. Okay, you fill out a form, pick a day and time, and then we will go over your data. Okay, and when I say that, please do not bring a whole big log of the last 3 weeks. We'll be able to identify what are those big issues, based on the process we have. Okay, so you can go ahead and go to that page now, or open up a new browser, fill that in, and we'll talk soon. Okay, so there's everything there's 98% of everything. There's always going to be more of what you need to know about tracking sleep data, making decisions for sleep apnea. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.